Hi everyone, in this video I'm gonna share with you how to edit a dramatic picture in Lightroom. So that will be basically a mix of global adjustments, local adjustments, and some few color adjustments here and there, and let's see what we can have. So I'm gonna share my screen right now so that you can see the picture I wanna deal with. So this is the one I wanna deal with. This is a picture I took in the Lofoten during a workshop this winter. We were actually locked in during the whole morning because there was a lot of snow and the road hadn't been cleared yet, so we were basically locked in because of too much snow, but we were lucky because of course we were in front of a nice fjord, which is usually the case in the Lofoten, and we went with one of the participants a bit along the fjord, and we found this nice place where we could practice some nice long exposures, and we got very lucky because there was some small openings here in the sky, as you can see, and yeah, of course we could do the long exposure, which is what we have in the foreground. So this is how I worked on the picture earlier, and as I was working on it, I thought that would be really nice to share it with like anyone who would be interested to do this kind of exercises here. So let's start and edit this picture without any further ado. So we're going to start from scratch here. And the good thing about this picture, as you can see, is that there is already a good dynamic range. So either you see it on the picture or you look here on the right corner in Lightroom in the develop module, and you see that the histogram is towards the left, which means that there is more dark than highlights, and that's perfectly good because dark parts in a picture usually can be recovered, while highlights, when they're burned, it gets like really harder or even impossible to recover. So in this case, the picture is well exposed. So the first thing we want to do, or at least that I am doing, even before like touching any of the color and so on, like the temperature, is to recover the lights. So before that, I'm just gonna change the profile to something a little less contrasty, which is the Adobe Standard V2, so that, as you can see, it removes a little bit of the contrast in the darker parts of the picture, so that gets easier even to recover, like to recover the shadows. So the first thing I want to do is to bring a little bit of the exposure, but just a tiny bit of the exposure, like remove a little bit of the contrast so that I clear a little bit the picture, then bring down the highlights so that I recover the highlights, especially in the sky, then recover the shadows for the foreground, not too much, just enough so that we get to see what is happening here. I will bring back some of the white so that it pops a little bit the picture, that the whites like really bring some contrast like within the whites of the picture. So yeah, that boosts the white, as it says, because it's white. And what happened if I touch the black here? Maybe I can recover a little bit of the blacks, but not too much, just like this, so that it remains reasonable. And we can still adjust this later on, but I think that's a good starting point. Then I will add a little bit of clarity. As you can see on the foreground, especially, it adds a little bit of structure in the water, which is really cool. And let's touch a little bit of the vibrance, but just a tiny bit, because I always want to be careful with this. These are usually things that I'm touching first, and then I tend to come back to it to adjust them. So once I have this, I want to touch a little bit on the temperature of the picture. So I want my picture to be a little bit more like sunrises colors, and so a bit more orange. So for that, I go on the right and go a little bit further on the temperature, and I will go around like 9,000, something like this. So let's put it like this and like this. That's a good base for me to start working on. So once I'm done with this, then I'm gonna do some local adjustments. And by local adjustments, in the latest version of Lightroom, so you find them here below the histogram on the right hand side, and you've got masking basically. And this is how you do the local adjustments. So the first thing I want to do is to care about the foreground. So I'm going to do a linear gradient. So either I click on it, or if I know it, I push the M on the keyboard so that I have the shortcut and it's faster when you get used to it and when you want to use it. So the first thing I want to do here is to bring some clarity on the foreground, but not too much, just enough so that it really has a little bit of impact. And I maybe bring a little bit more shadows here, but still maybe a bit more contrast, but very tiny bit, a little more shadows like that. Then the second thing I want to do, I want still to focus here on the foreground, because I want to have here that part where the water is really showing the long exposure effect. I want to emphasize this a little bit. So I will add one more layer here and do a radial gradient. So I'm going to do a radial gradient just on that part. So I just move it around. Just make sure it covers the area enough so that the effect is really visible on the part I want to. If you look here on the right corner of the picture, you can see where it highlights exactly. So that's good. And here I will just add some contrast, some clarity, sorry. I'm just going to add some clarity. And as you can see, it really brings some structure in that part of the water. Maybe I do this a little bit bigger, that I have the top of the rock here, which is also affected. So now I see that there is like something interesting happening. I emphasized the bottom of my image. Now the next local adjustment I want to do, I want to take care of the sky, because here I can have a beautiful sky. So the first thing I do, I want to select my sky. And once it's selected, so I'm looking where it covers it. So unfortunately, the sky has been mixed with the, so if I just show you and zoom in, the sky has been mixed here with the snow, because there is not enough color difference between the sky and the snow. So the white part of the snow basically gets considered as sky. So in order to limit this, I will mix my sky selection with a linear gradient. So for this, I do intersect. So click right on the mask, on the sky mask, I do intersect, and then I select the linear gradient. And from there, I just like pull a linear gradient, adjust it well, and I move it around so that it's not too visible on the mountain. So I just put it a little bit higher up. And guys, just a quick reminder, in case you like my videos, you like the content I'm creating, and you're learning something when you're watching my videos, then feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below, or even in the corner here, right on the left. And that would be really amazing. That's supporting me. That helps me really go ahead with my YouTube channel. And also, of course, if you like this video, that would be amazing to give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you for that. And what I want to do here is really recover the sky as much as I can and bring some structure, and like also making sure the highlights are not blown out. So the first thing I want to do, I want to bring the contrast to the maximum, and this varies according to the pictures. On these pictures, it works well because the sky is not too aggressive. So when you have like much stronger color, be careful with bringing up the contrast too much. That can be a little bit tricky. And then I want to bring down the highlights as well. So here I already start recovering enough of the sky, and we can see the before and after. And another thing I want to do, which is really interesting and which I really love to use in the skies, this is the dehaze. The dehaze basically will bring some some contrast while recovering as well the highlights in some way. And as you can see, it brings some structure and some darkness to the sky. So you want to use it like carefully, because if you go way too much, it gets like very ugly and like unusable. But you want to use it just very carefully, like somewhere around like 15-20 should be fine, maybe a little more. And I want to bring a little bit of clarity so that it brings even a little bit more structure in the sky. So there we go. There we have a sky which starts to look really nice. Now I want to make sure that the sky also has a little more grading into it. So I want to darken a little bit more the top of the sky, because it's not really interesting right on the top. The interesting part is really the colorful part and the opening here. And this will bring a little bit of drama. So I select another linear gradient here that I would like pull from the top and like bring down the exposure there. So it has to look still natural, so don't bring down the exposure too much, and make sure that you have it well like this. So yeah, as you can see, it really helps to remove the distraction from the top of the sky and bring the let's say the eyes to the light here on the mountain, and of course the foreground as well. So, and now the last adjustment I want to do is that I want to still work on the sky, and I want to do a radial gradient here on that highlighted part of the sky, where basically I want to like maybe bring a little bit more color here. I need to be careful with that. So I want to bring the temperature higher so that it gets a little bit more orange, but like just a tiny bit, maybe a little bit more saturation. Like you can start even going higher up with the saturation and then adjust it according to what you feel is right. So I will bring it something like this, which feels right to me. Just like about like 50% of it. I will put it at 50% because I think it's nice right now. And let's see if I bring a little bit more of the dehaze, if it really brings a little bit more structure. I could just use it a tiny bit like this without making it too dominant. And what about a little bit of highlight to make it a little bit shinier, especially as you can see here on the mountain, it brings a little bit of the shiny part. So yeah, I would just bring it a little bit higher up like this. So I think from the top of the sky I have something like really interesting. The last thing I want to do in local adjustment, and that's something you can do either now or you can do later on, but I will do it right now. I will bring a radial gradient that will surround the image and really bring some of the dramatic look in my image. So I do this, and now I have it like full inside the gradient. I want to have now use it on the outside of the gradient, the outer part of the gradient. So for this I do on Mac Option apostrophe, or at least on my keyboard this is like this, and I here bring down the exposure so that I make sure I have something a little bit more dramatic. Maybe I stretch it a little bit so that, yeah, I have something like fairly dramatic here, and that looks really nice to me. As you can see, we brought some structure with all the local adjustment, some structure on the foreground, some light and some darkness in the sky, and the rest of the picture is well exposed, so we are good with that for now. I could still bring, maybe now that I have, when I got back to the global adjustment, I can just act a little bit maybe on the contrast, bring a little bit the contrast. What about the highlights? Bring a little bit of the highlights, but really not too much actually. Need to be very careful. And now we can see if we want to play with the vibrance or not. And if you can see, if I bring the vibrance up and even the saturation, I get a lot of purple color and probably magenta as well, a mix of both. So I want to get back to what I had initially. May even bring a little bit more the vibrance and go in the color mixer here. And what I want to do is select this purple color because I really don't want to have this color cast in my picture. So for this, I select here the pointer and I bring it to my picture, and by moving it around, it shows me which color I will be acting on. So I want to go to the sky because I see that it's very present in the sky, and I can see it's highlighting the purple in the hue. We want the saturation because we want to remove this color, and since we have a dramatic color, which is more or less black and white, we can play on this. It will bring it back to gray. So we go on it and then we select it and we go down, and as you can see, it moves it around. So we could go higher up, then it saturates, but we want to go down so that it desaturates it enough. So we don't need to go too far. We can see that there is maybe a little bit of cast from that color, but since we brought the vibrance higher up, we can just like go a little bit down and see it. Now, maybe actually in the color mixer, I just moved it a little bit too much down, and I will bring it higher up a tiny bit like this. And there I have something really interesting. I can bring a little bit the orange, like a little bit more of the saturation in the orange, so that you can see it acts in sky, maybe a little bit of the yellow, which is more on the foreground. And let's see about the luminance here. Bring a little bit more luminance in the orange, but very carefully so that it doesn't burn everything, because you can see it can burn some parts of it. So just really keep it that way for now. And so that's how I would act on the color mixer. So now, if you want to play with the color grading, then here it's really up to you which kind of colors you want to use. I mean, for me, I have like a setup that I use, which is a mix of orange and blue. So let me show you how it looks. So if I put it on it, of course, now the effect is very strong. It's a preset that I put, but I don't want to have this preset that strong here on the picture, so I will bring it down. Here you can select how much you want to have it, and I will just bring it up a little bit, and maybe like this, something like 30-40%. So I will put it at 40% for now, and so that it brings a little bit of atmosphere, and it's a little bit of my personal touch on the pictures, like the colors I like to use myself. So it's you can get inspired to with this if you want to. Like you could highlight the that's what I did here. I highlighted the in orange the highlights, the midtones are in blue, and the shadows in blue too. And this is something that I really like, and I find that it brings some kind of harmony into the picture, because blue and orange are kind of complementary colors in the color wheel. So it really brings some harmony here. As you can see in the sky, so I didn't treat them here, but in the sky, I do have some like sensor dust here. Some of them I can remove them directly in Lightroom by selecting them pretty much, and Lightroom will do the job. So I do have some few here and there, and some others I would need to go in Photoshop to remove them. But that's pretty much what I wanted to show you, and let's see how it compares to the other picture I had. I guess we're gonna be the other one was very much more dynamic actually. I went too soft on that one. I could have gone with a little bit more structure maybe on the foreground. Bring a little bit more structure here, and maybe in the sky here, that part. I could just here raise the light so that it does exactly the effect I had, but like it pushes it a little bit, maybe a little bit of white here so that it's more dynamic, a bit bigger. maybe something like this, a little bit more. And now it should compare pretty much the same. Yeah, something rather similar, just on the other one. I put my color grading and the radial gradient around the picture that brings some more shadows that makes a dramatic effect. So yeah, so you can see it's fairly easy. It requires a little bit of time, and here of course it took more time because I was explaining you all the process and how I was thinking about each of my actions. But if you do it by yourself, like, it's pretty much done in like 5 to 10 minutes maximum, because you pretty much do always the same when you look at a picture like this. And normally I even go further. I go in Photoshop, but that will be the subject for another video, because otherwise this one will get like way too large. And once we will have it, once you have this in mind, we will get to another video where I'm going to share with you how it goes in Photoshop. So with that, I really hope that you enjoy watching this video, and I really hope that this inspires you. And so with that, I wish you good luck with your photography, and see you next week for a new video.